An application should be robust, reactive, and interactive for the user. This includes in the face of runtime errors. These types of errors are unexpected. The application's gone through the testing process and has been launched into production and is assumed to be sound. However, a runtime error, some exceptional circumstance has occurred that causes the application to crash. We need to manage this type of error, this type of exceptional circumstance. In PHP, we refer to these types of runtime errors as exceptions, and PHP allows us to manage these exceptional circumstances by changing the flow of execution of our application in response to these errors. The mechanism for managing these exceptions uses two new keywords, try and catch. Try and catch are part of the exception handling mechanism in PHP. Try encapsulates a block of code, protecting that block of code. Anything within the try block is protected from an exceptional runtime error. If an exceptional runtime error occurs within the code in a try block, the flow of execution is transferred to one of the catch blocks that are associated with that try block. A catch block can be written to respond to any type of runtime error, and the response can be any legitimate PHP code, so that we can be reactive to runtime errors in our code that protect the state of the application and allow us to recover from these errors so as not to affect the user experience. In general, an uncaught exception, an uncaught runtime error, will result in a fatal error and the application will terminate. So let's go look at an example. In this snippet of code, we're demonstrating the exception handling mechanism in PHP that allows us to control the flow of execution of code in the face of a runtime error, an exception. In this first execution, we will get the output we expect because there is no error. We executed the code on line 13 within the try block, and there was no error, so the flow of execution was normal. Well, now let's introduce an error. So we introduce an error using this new keyword, throw, and we're going to throw an exception type. So the syntax we'll discuss in detail later, but the syntax is to throw a new exception type. Now, exception is a class, and so we need to create an object of that class, and we use the new keyword. That's all of that is going to be discussed in the very near future in this course, so please don't concern yourself with that at this time. Just know that we are going to cause a runtime error to occur so that we can demonstrate how the flow of execution in the program changes in the face of that error. So I've made my change, I save, and I execute, and we can see now that at the point that the exception, the runtime error occurred on line 12, line 13 never got executed. Within this try block, all of that code is protected from runtime errors. When a runtime error is encountered, the flow of execution transfers to line 17 and the catch block to manage that runtime error. So we threw an exception. The exception was caught in the catch block, and that catch block output two echo statements that redirected, in this case, the user to a different part of the website. Notice the syntax. We have our new keyword try, and we have the opening brace of the code block. the closing brace of the try code block, immediately followed by the catch keyword and the type of exception in parentheses that the catch is handling. We'll see an example of this in a moment where we can have multiple catch statements dealing with multiple types of runtime errors. And then within the code block of the catch statement, we have our recovery code. We have the reaction to the error that we want the application to take. Once the catch executes, if we don't redirect to some other part of the code by calling a function or some other transfer of execution, then the flow of execution will continue with the code that follows the closing brace of the catch statement. So the exception handling mechanism can manage multiple different types of exceptional circumstances that might happen in our application. And because we can't plan for these circumstances, because again, they are exceptional, they are unexpected runtime errors, we have to design an error handling mechanism that is as robust as possible in dealing with any possible error that could occur during runtime to protect our application and the user experience. To do that with the try-catch mechanism, we just include more catch blocks. We can include a catch block for each type of exceptional circumstance that may occur, and PHP will manage which catch block to call based on the type of exception that occurs during runtime. So let's go look at some code. So in this code snippet, we're going to demonstrate how we might respond to multiple types of exceptions that could occur in our application. In order to respond to multiple potential runtime errors, we need to define multiple catch blocks. And in doing so, we need to define those catch blocks from the most specific type of error that might occur to the most general type of error, because the PHP preprocessor will check the type of error that occurs against the type listed in the catch blocks in the order that the catch blocks are listed following the try block. So most specific down to the general type of errors, so that we can trap those specific types of errors, those more specific type of errors during runtime. So in this case, we haven't changed anything from the previous demonstration, except that we've added a new catch block. And this is a specific catch block so that it is catching a logic exception, which is a more specific type of exception than the generic exception type. So if we had an exception of type logic exception, then this code block should execute. If we have a more generic exception type or any other exception type that does not match the logic exception, then this catch block that takes an exception type will execute. So again, this should respond exactly as it did in the previous demonstration, and certainly it does. It executes the code in the catch block starting at line 24. So now let's generate a more specific runtime error, a logic exception. So we're going to throw this logic exception and see where the flow of execution is going to be transferred. What we expect is that because this is a type logic exception, that the PHP preprocessor will match the catch that's defined for the logic exception type and execute the code in the catch block beginning at line 18. So let's save this, and there we go. So now we have responded to this very specific runtime error type by executing a different block of reactive code, of error management code, than we did when we threw the more general exception type. So the point here is that we want to create our catch blocks so that the most specific exception types are listed first, because the PHP preprocessor will begin the matching process from the first catch block after the closing brace of the try block until it finds a match.